Let's install an HP Industries modular selector kit into this B&T APC9. The HP Industries modular selector kit is going to fit a wide range of B&T products. These products will include the APC and APC Pro series in 9, 40, 45, 556, 300 black, and 308. They'll also fit the B&T GHM 9 and 45 models and the SBC line of products. So to install the safety selectors, we're going to need a couple tools. These tools include a 3/16 or 5mm punch, a small hammer, this one weighs 4 ounces, and a set of small precision pointed tweezers. I like to use the tweezers to manipulate the spring and plunger detent inside the safety selector assembly. If you don't have a pair of tweezers, you might also be able to use a small pick or maybe a small punch. The last thing we'll need to install the safety selectors is a roll of painter's tape or an armorer's block to support the upper receiver. Let's go ahead and get started on removing the Oem selectors. The first thing to do is to make sure the weapon's clear. When removing the selectors, I like to keep them in the safe position. So set the hammer and put your safety selectors to safe. We're going to remove the 2 takedown pins from the lower receiver. On the APC, the rear back cap can slide out. So this is on all the 9, 40, 45, 556, 300, and 308 models. Pulling straight down might cause the receiver and cap to come out. So what I like to do is take the 5mm or 3/16 punch and light hammer and remove the back pin first. With the back pin removed, you can kind of capture the upper receiver and the stock adapter with your hand and rotate the lower down and away while keeping the stock adapter or rear trunnion, if you want to call it that, and the receiver in one piece. Now we'll just kind of support the upper again and remove the front takedown pin. Both of the takedown pins are held captive in the lower by springs. So as you pull them out, you'll kind of hear the click from the spring. That's as far as you'll need to pull the takedown pin. Don't try to pull it any further than that. With the 2 receiver halves separated, we're going to put the upper receiver aside and just kind of focus on the lower receiver. I'll push the takedown pins back in so that we can lay the receiver flat when we work on it. Let's go ahead and get a closer look at these Oem selectors and we'll get them taken apart. Let's get the factory safety selector removed from this lower receiver. We're going to take the right side selector lever off of the center spindle. To do that, put the selector in the fire position and find the access hole on the side of the selector lever. We're going to depress. There's a plunger and a spring inside of the safety selector lever holding onto the crossbar or spindle. So press using your tweezers or pick or small punch, press down on the detent plunger and kind of slide the selector lever up towards the safe position or kind of towards the upper receiver. You're going to notice this cutout kind of groove along the upper receiver. That's to allow the safety selector to slide up and off of the center of the spindle. So I like to use my finger and just push the selector lever up towards that groove. As you push the selector lever up, your finger is going to capture, the pad of your finger you'll feel capture the spring and detent plunger that you accessed through the hole in this selector lever. Removing your finger slowly, you'll see the steel detent pin and spring inside the center spindle of the selector assembly. Some of the older selectors on the B&T receivers use a kind of a black plastic molded detent. So I'll slide this one off real quick so you can see it. So if your detent is not steel but rather like a black plastic, that is totally normal. Same exact assembly, just different parts. Now we're going to slide the left side selector and center spindle through the lower receiver and out the left side of the frame, or of the receiver. To do this, I like to put the selector between the safe and fire position, kind of halfway in between, and you'll feel the detents in the lower receiver preload, and this is good because it allows us to just slide the center spindle past the detents. So I'll kind of show that now. As you kind of twist the selector lever, you can, again, kind of twist it between safe and fire. You'll feel it and see it start to walk out the left side of the lower receiver. As you do that, maybe take your thumb and hold it over the top of the receiver. This will make sure you capture any detents or springs that try to come out at you. So we have it about halfway out now. You should be able to see down here one of the detents, and beneath the detent a spring. You can leave the detents installed or take them out at this point, up to you. I'll set them aside, we'll look at those in a second. So let's finish taking the selector lever out of the lower receiver. Thumb over, and again, I'm just gonna rotate the selector lever until, and while rotate and pull, and kind of just work it out the left side of the receiver. On this side, let's go ahead and remove the left side detent. And this one came with a spring in it. Easy. Before we lose these small pins and springs, I like to reassemble the factory safety selector just to keep all the components together. So we'll slide the spring back in, push down the pin, and reinstall the lever kind of the exact same way you took it off. I heard it click in their place, and then we'll set the entire factory selector assembly aside. We're going to replace it with the HP Industries modular selector kit. Let's go ahead and take a second to look at some of the options in the kit. So we're going to have a center spindle, two thumb selector levers, a delete, and screws and a Torx key to install them. The thumb selectors and delete are all modular components. So for example, we could install this with two thumb selectors, one on the left, one on the right. We could opt to put a delete on the right side or swap them around, install the delete on the left side. Any one of these configurations will be very, very easy to achieve once the center spindle is installed into the lower receiver. I'm going to go ahead and do two thumb selectors at this point, and maybe towards the end I'll show you how easy it is to swap out and replace one of the thumb selectors with a delete cap. Let's look at our center spindle and identify the L and the R markings. Those, of course, correspond to left and right once installed into the lower receiver. I'm going to install a thumb selector onto my left side. And at this point, just going to kind of do finger tight on the screw. This will act similar to the factory selector, where I can kind of use the selector lever to leverage the spindle as I push it through the lower receiver. And before we install these selectors, I'm going to also opt to install some of our reduced weight selector lever springs, or selector detent springs. These replace the factory springs, and they are slightly lower in rate, which makes the selectors a little quicker and easier to operate. It's not required to do the springs, but I'm going to go ahead and do them now just since we have everything apart. Let's go ahead and reinstall our detents. So we'll use our tweezers. I'm going to drop the detents back into the pockets that they came out of. The detents are symmetrical, so they'll fit in either the left or the right side of the lower receiver. If you can get them installed. One on the left, one on the right. Then we're going to take our selector assembly and begin to push it through the lower receiver. I'm going to use the tweezers to depress the detent as I advance the selector lever through, and kind of exactly the same as we took it out. We're going to rotate the selector spindle as we walk it through the lower receiver. See if we can show you here. Some better light. When you get to the right side, I'm going to again reach in, depress the plunger, and just walk the selector lever through. It does help to have the selector lever kind of halfway between safe and fire there, again, as you're pushing through. And once you get it through, it'll click into place. At this point, I'm going to install the right side selector lever. Place the lever on, drop the screw in. You can use blue Loctite 242. The torque spec on these two screws, both left and right side, is going to be 7 to 10 inch-pounds, not to exceed 1 Newton meter if you're doing metric. So I'll kind of torque both sides now and verify operation. And we're going to drop back down and install it into the upper receiver. Let's reinstall our lower receiver onto the upper. To do that, takedown pins come back out. Grab your upper receiver. I like to do the front takedown pin first. Again, we're going to go reverse order. Rear takedown pin, push it back through, and then verify function. Fire position, hammer falls, charge, reset. Safe. Hammer does not fall. Fire. Hammer falls. I've opted for the 2 thumb selectors, but as we kind of mentioned a moment ago, I might opt to replace this thumb selector with the delete cap. To do that, simply remove your torque screw. Place your delete cap into the selector spindle. Reinstall the torque screw and torque it to 7 to 10 inch-pounds, not more than 1 Newton meter. And now we have a right side configured thumb selector and a delete on the left. Thank you for watching the installation of the HP Industries Modular Selector Kit for the APC series of firearms. If you have questions or need additional information, please feel free to reach out to us, phone, email. We're always here, also on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again for watching.